Hello everyone, my name is Kaylee, and you're listening to the first episode of the Warrior Painters podcast. In this episode, I chatted with 4 artists in the entertainment industry about their first art job experience, how they landed a job, what they learned, and what tips they could offer to fellow job seekers.
Hi, my name is Alvin Villanueva. I've been a background painter since 2013 here in Los Angeles. And I just wrapped up a job at Cartoon Network working on Close Enough, which is going to premiere in July 9th. So watch out for it.
I'm Angela. I've been working in the industry for almost 8 years. I'm currently a Viz Dev artist at DreamWorks Feature.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I think I've been working for 6 years-ish in the animation industry, and I'm currently lead designer / character designer at a show at Wild Canary.
And my name is Larry. I've been working in various industries professionally for about 9 years now. Currently, I'm a freelance theme park designer, so I've been working on some theme park stuff.
That's awesome. Did you design Disneyland?
Oh yeah, all of it, all the way back in the day.
All right, so I want to kick off this with a warm-up question. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
A lesbian. No, I'm just joking. I wanted to be a marine biologist.
You did it! Yay!
Yeah, completed my
Congrats.
dream. Thank you.
A marine biologist, did you know what that was when you were younger?
Yeah, because I was really into fish and raising like guppies and stuff like that. So I wanted to understand more about fishes.
A lot of kids wanted to be marine biologists. I remember that was like a very popular career goal.
Oh, damn. Good thing we're not, because there's so much plastic in the ocean. There's probably no more fish.
Michelle, what about you?
I think I wanted to be a librarian.
Oh, wow.
Because I really like books and reading. I think I also wanted to be a teacher. At least those are my earliest memories of what I wanted to do.
But you are a teacher right now, so you're
yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Also became true.
I also wanted to be a lesbian as a kid.
Good job.
Actually, I wanted to be Michael Jackson, but that didn't go so well. Then I wanted to design cars, and that didn't go so well too. So now I'm here.
How did you want to become Michael Jackson? Is it the music or the dance?
Both. He was my idol. He was my first role model in life.
When I was really young, I wanted to become a shark, but that didn't work out because that's impossible. Then I think early on I wanted to be an architect because I drew a lot, and everybody told me that's the job that you're supposed to get when you like to draw. And then my dad stopped me from doing that. So after that, it's just been studying to become an artist in various forms.
I find that interesting because when I was growing up, I didn't know there's a job or occupation as an artist. So I'm wondering, how did you guys know that you can be an artist and make a living?
Yeah, actually, I didn't know either because my parents are traditional Asian parents. They only raise you to be a doctor, engineer, nurse, or lawyer. So when I went to college for the first time, I picked engineer because I liked cars at the time. So I thought I was going to be designing cars. But I picked mechanical engineering, and I didn't know that that wasn't really the right path. If you want to design cars, you were supposed to pick vehicle design. So I didn't know that. And by the time I realized, I was already like in my 4th year of school. So I was like, oh, I might as well just finish school. And then I got a job, and my friend who my high school friend, he went to art school. And then I was like, hey man, how's things going? And like, yeah, man, I'm just about to graduate art school. I'm going to get an internship at Pixar. And that blew my mind. I was like, wait, what? Hold on. You can do that? Hold on. Pixar, the place that makes movies? I had no idea until he mentioned that an artist can work in movies. Prior to that, I only thought if you wanted to do art for a living, you would be doing caricatures at Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk or something. So that's how I found out.
Well, for me, when I was 16 years old, I started to get really bad. Like I was so bad at math that I'm like, okay, I guess I can't become a scientist. So I started to do some research online, and I found conceptart.org.
That's how I found out too. Yeah.
And then I I reached out to like one of my idols at the time, Feng Zhu. So I emailed him and I'm like, hey, I don't know if you could make money doing this, but like, could you give me some advice? And he emailed me back and he said that you could totally make a good life out of this. And as long as you work hard, it'll be fine. So that's when I decided to work on becoming an artist.
And Michelle, you said you find out through the same website?
Well, yeah, similarly when I was like scoping around, because I wouldn't say that I always wanted to be an artist, but when it came time to like, now I'm going to apply to schools and I have to figure out like what direction I want to go, I was sort of interested in art because that was just something I always wanted to do, but also wasn't aware of like all the different roles and positions that I think now a lot more people are aware of, like what a vis dev artist is, what a character designer is. Like back then, that's when I first heard about like concept artists, like from conceptart.org, that forum and stuff. So I can't think of like a specific person. I think I mostly just like stalked the forums and was just like looking at what other people were doing. I might have emailed some people like asking them like, what schools did you go to? What did you study and stuff? I ended up going to USC and studying animation, not knowing entirely like what I would want to do in animation necessarily or what kind of jobs there were for animation, but it was just like one direction that I thought would be interesting. And then also since USC is like a university that's not just an art school, they have a lot of other different schools. I thought I could keep my options open in case this didn't work out. I liked art. I liked watching animated movies and stuff. I don't think I was really aware of what it took to make animation and all the work that was involved. And that was something I definitely learned in school. And I kind of maybe not want to be an animator, but it also opened me up to like other areas like design, character design and painting and all that other stuff that I wasn't aware was also part of animation.
I found out about this stuff way before, well, maybe not way before, but like pre-internet days. I got one of those Art of Star Wars books by Larry Quach, and later on the ones that Doug Chiang did for the old Star Wars movies. And I would look at it and not really understand what it took to do it. So like I went to college and I studied fine art, and I had no idea what fine art was. My parents didn't know anything about college. So when I went there and I said, okay, fine art is just like painting, right? I said, no, it's just like when you come up with crazy stuff that you pull out of your butt. And it's just like, it's something completely different. And back in the day, I think before the recession, most people, they go to school and they kind of like just wiggle away into something. You kind of just fumble into it. So like after a few years of studying fine art and kind of bullshitting my way through college, I ended up getting a job that's totally unrelated to anything. And then after that, my ex-girlfriend at the time, she convinced me to go to Art Center, something that I found out my heroes like Doug Chiang and a lot of the people who did concept art at the time, they went to that school. So she applied for me and I went in and applied and I was able to get in. So that kind of started my trajectory on that kind of stuff. And I learned a little bit more and I met Angela in school.
So you went to 2 colleges?
Yes, 2 colleges. Wasted a lot of money. 2 bachelors of art and bachelors of science.
Wow, impressive.
You also worked in animation too, right, Larry?
No, never worked in animation. I worked in a little bit in games, like mobile games, and a little bit in film for VFX houses and stuff.
Okay. How did you guys discover all these paths of like the routes to go to after you graduated or you dropped out? Like,
for me, I feel like school never taught me this. So I was really mad at Art Center actually for that. But I think it was just getting referrals for me was how I knew about the different positions.
getting referrals from where?
Like your friend would be like, hey, this job is looking for this. Why don't you try out for it? And like, at first I had no idea TV animation was separated into so many different like job titles, but it was after the fact that like I got in that I found out. So I was like really dumb and like naive when I first got in.
I think, yeah, because like we all keep talking about like back then, like it was ages ago, but I don't know, maybe it was like a decade ago or so. I don't really know timeline wise, but yeah, it was probably like before Instagram. I think I found out about jobs or like specific animation jobs through school. I took classes with Will Weston, who also taught at Art Center, and he was always showing us work from like viz dev artists who worked for Disney and a lot of the feature artists. So that was like the first time I heard of the term viz dev artist or visual development artist, and I wanted to go that path. And I think it was just maybe through him and talking to other students as well, and doing more like digging online is when I was like got to be more open up to other like positions and stuff in animation. Is because I feel like for a lot of us we weren't necessarily like focused on one, like I'm going to become like a character designer, a background designer, and then this is my path through school. We all were like, we went in, we sort of knew what we maybe want to do, this maybe not, and then other things kind of like, oh wow, it was like we were I know Angela said you were like young and naive, but I think that was kind of a good thing for all of us because it made us like a little bit more open-minded, and who knows, it's kind of exciting, like who knows what other new things are popping up, and they all are kind of new. I feel like a lot of these, and I feel like this dev role has kind of changed over time too, versus like older Disney guys working like traditional work versus like now everything is all digital and stuff. So these roles are like kind of new, always changing. So of course back then we didn't know about it, and now like a lot of information is out there, and a lot of people are able to learn and maybe be a little more focused on their paths.
Yeah. Like Instagram is definitely a better source right now for people to get to know different things than what you guys had before.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't know exactly every path. Like when I started, I didn't know there was a difference between background layout and background painting. When I graduated, we all graduated with viz dev. So, I thought a viz dev artist just applied to everything. And at the time when I graduated, I actually wanted to get into video games, because I was playing a lot of video games at the time. And video games and feature film, because that's what our school, San Jose State, prepared us for. So it was either video games or movies, and I ended up in series animation somehow.
Well, I kind of just fumbled into it, but it just coincided that I really loved theme park growing up, and I still loved it. Every time I go travel, I would actually go to a theme park to check it out. And my favorite ride when I was a kid was Back to the Future at Universal Studios. And later on, eventually, I would end up working for Universal, doing some of the stuff for the rides. And it's just like, if you have a passion in something, somehow you're just going to fumble into it. You might unknowingly do like fan art. So I did a lot of fan art of rides for like stuff that I really like. And somehow they discovered my artwork, and they ended up hiring me based on stuff that I did just for fun.
And now are you like open to any other industries as well, like film, like animation?
Yeah, because theme park is kind of slowing down right now, because nobody can go do any work, so development is slowing down. So yeah, I'm actually learning a lot from Angela. She's trying to whip me into shape to do animation.
I think that kind of eases into our main topic today. Like we really want to learn how you guys got your first art job. So you can talk about your first paycheck from doing artwork, and also your first full-time job as an artist.
In class, I was never like the best student. In fact, I was one of the worst. But I tried really, really hard, and the teacher can see the effort that I put into it. Like it was a struggle. But later on, the teacher ended up referring me to one of his friends, because he says, okay, this kid's a hard worker. So he sent me in and gave me my first job, which was at a kind of like a small VFX studio. There was a lot of stories about my first job that a lot of things I didn't know that I wish I knew that I had to overcome. But overall, it was a good experience, because like I was glad to have the opportunity. And one thing I realized subsequently, that a lot of the times the jobs is, some of it is based on your work, but a lot of times it's based on referral. So the more people you know, the better impression you leave, the more likely you're going to get hired for something that you didn't even realize somebody was looking for.
And how long did you work there?
For maybe about half a year before. It was just all project-based. So in our industry, everything is project-based. After a while, you build up this resume of all this, also this body of work. I felt like I learned more on the job about stuff than I did in in school, because school, they kind of rush you. You have like a week to do a project. Sometimes, and you have 5 classes. So you're trying to tackle 5 projects at once. So you can't dedicate as much time to refine. But then the studios sometimes they give you a lot more time. Sometimes the opposite.
And that's the time you worked on some VFX for movies, right?
Oh no, that was before that. It was for video games. So it was.
Oh, okay.
It was for. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Bratz, like these dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my first
They look
projects
like
was,
treasure trolls.
yeah, pretty much with the big eyes, the big lips. They look like Kardashians for kids. But I didn't expect myself to do that. But it was actually one of my funnest jobs. Important thing I learned from that first job was that just because you're a big fan of something doesn't mean that project's going to be the most fun. So I actually had a Star Wars job, and it was completely horrible at the same studio. And like I said, oh, awesome! My first job, I get to work on Star Wars stuff. It's great, you know. But because they had already set a standard of what things should look like, and Lucasfilm is very, very picky about how things ought to be. You cannot deviate. So basically, you're just translating things that already exist. So we as artists, we want to be creative. We want to express ourselves, right? So sometimes these projects that have these set guidelines, they didn't have that. So when they threw me on the Bratz, you know, I just use what I knew, what little did I know of I guess dolls, but just kind of like doing it and making it funny, and then it was a blast to work on. So yeah, Bratz.
And did that job experience prepare you for the next jobs? Or did you get a job right after, or?
A few months after, I finally landed my dream gig, which was a VFX house called Rhythm and Hues. It was kind of controversial at the time, because that was the same year they did the movie that won the Academy Award, and a few years back they had this whole VFX strike, and everybody was putting like green screens in the background. And I think that was a time when there was a big upheaval, where a lot of people in the industry realized that because there is no union, it kind of suffered. And like all these artists, because at the time they were making so much money, at the time the few that were in there, they never banded together. And because of that, everything is just like afoot. And eventually the studio that I worked for, even though they won the Academy Award, they went bankrupt. So that's a lot of things that you also see in this industry. Like if you're working for a lot of smaller studios, sometimes they'll be successes. A lot of times they could just go under like within the year. So you never really know.
That's pretty sad. Do you miss the people, or do you ever miss that experience right now?
Oh yeah. It was great. The funny thing is the industry is still pretty small, so you'll see the same people again. Like a lot of my coworkers went to DreamWorks and various other studios, and we still meet and talk to this day. So it's good. The camaraderie is still there.
I guess I kind of had 2 first. Like what I consider my first art job working for a studio wasn't necessarily in studio. I actually found it through Twitter. I just saw, I don't even know who posted or whatever, but someone posted and someone was looking, and it turned out to be a studio in Ireland. So I just sent them my stuff, and they liked it, and they had me jump on it was like a short animated series for, I think it was on BBC and stuff. And I basically I do a lot more stuff than I thought I was going to do, including like storyboarding, and I'm not a storyboard artist, but I was like, sure, yeah, I can do that. Storyboard, I do like characters and backgrounds, so it was like quite a good first dive into like getting my feet wet and trying a lot of different things. Even though I didn't necessarily know how to do everything, like I didn't really know how to storyboard and stuff. And I was working like remotely from home. So I did that for a couple months, and I think after that, my first in-house studio job here in LA, I actually didn't apply for. I just finished up an internship, and a fellow intern, we both were from LA, and we came back to LA. And she said she knew somebody at a local studio called Wild Canary, and she would just send my stuff in. So again, we were talking about like referrals, and really it is very important and a really big deal in helping you get jobs. So I didn't even know if they were looking. I didn't know what they did, but she sent my stuff in, and it turned out that they were looking for an artist. They called me in, and then I got hired. And it was weird because it turned out there were a few people at that studio that I already knew before. Like one of my teachers from school was like a director there. Some other people that I had interned with before. So it is like a really, really small industry that you'll run into. You'll run into all these people all the time. So I think I got super, super lucky in that aspect. And I've been at that studio for a couple years now.
Did you ever try storyboard at the studio or no? Not after
No.
that.
There are people who know how to storyboard and much more experienced and trained in doing that. It wasn't really something that I was interested in doing. I'm glad I got the experience of doing it, but it's not something that I would want to just do as like a career.
But that was good experience. Your first job was working for an overseas studio.
Yeah, and it turns out we work with a lot of overseas studios here.
Yeah. And Alvin, you want to talk about it next?
Yeah, it was kind of wild. Yeah, I worked for
We're excited to hear it.
my first job experience. Well, first I started when I first graduated. When I graduated, I was very confident that I was gonna get a job soon. There was like no doubt in my mind. I was arrogant also. I had lots of arrogance years ago when I was younger. I'm not arrogant anymore though, but it turns out one of my colleagues, one of my classmates from school, he's been going down to LA to meet with people, and he met up with this company called Fox Animation Domination. I don't know if any of you have heard of that company. They have built a reputation for themselves. And so I was able to get some freelance over the summer. So I started my professional career the summer that I graduated, doing freelance for this company. And by the time, so I did that for maybe like a month or two, I think. And then they gave me a call and said, hey, why don't you just come work in house? And then I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do this. And then I just packed up all my shit and moved down to LA, and I slept on my friend's couch for a month because I didn't even have a place to live yet. Then while I was working, I was looking for a place to live, and then then I found a place. And then as for the place itself, the owners, there were two main people that ran that studio. I won't say their names, but they came from live action, and they ran the studio like a live action show. Which at the time, that was my first job, so I didn't know anything. I was like, okay, this is how an animation studio is supposed to run. And it was cool. It felt like a startup. We had a cool little building on the Sunset. It was very chic. You come, it's like almost like an apartment or something. You go in, there's a big spiral staircase. You go up, and each of the little office areas, there used to be like a bedroom or something, or like this used to be a living room. You could tell, and this used to be a kitchen, but they put a bunch of tables and computers in there. They repurposed like a old like chic apartment kind of building to be an animation studio, and it housed like 1, 2, 3, 4, 20, 40, maybe like 40 or 50 people. So I mean, my first time, especially like the first few months, that was great. I was like, oh man, this is so cool. I'm in LA, I'm in Hollywood, I made it, I'm in the biz. And then it kind of started to slowly like go downhill from there, and I started hearing rumors about the owners, about how they don't know what they're doing. And I heard other rumors, Hollywood style rumors, about parties and stuff and what happens at parties. And let's see what else.
What kind of parties?
Stuff that happens at Hollywood parties happened at these company parties.
Did you go to any of these parties, Alvin?
Yeah, I did.
Oh.
We need another podcast for
That's
these stories.
gonna be a late.
Painters
That'll be for a
after
late night.
hours.
Yeah,
After
late night hours
podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I started to wake up and like, oh, you know what? It's not always a fairy tale. Stuff actually happens. This is still a job. You still have to come in on time. You still have to deal with the bureaucracy, hierarchies. You have supervisors and producers and bosses to deal with. So yeah, it's all that. So that kind of sobered me up.
But did you like the work you were producing over there?
Oh yeah. There were a couple shows. My first show that I ever worked on was this show called Golan the Insatiable. And that was a challenge for me because it was the first time that I was asked to do a style that I was not familiar with. So I really had to really teach myself how to look at an image and break down the fundamental parts of it that create that style. It was actually a mix of like hand-drawn old style illustration with watercolor. Um, yeah, it's like watercolorish, illustration-ish colors. But since it was digital, you had to recreate the watercolor digitally, and you had to have a fast way to apply that illustrationally inky kind of look to it without having to redraw everything. So that was a challenge. And that show actually premiered on TV for a little bit on Fox, but it didn't do well. And yeah, and there were some other good shows that I like being on: Major Lazer, Axe Cop, and Stonecrackers. All those shows didn't do well, but they were fun to work on.
So I'm not feeling bad that I don't know these shows.
Yeah, exactly. No one knows these shows.
Okay, so let's talk about Angela's first job.
I didn't finish school, but during one term, I was like so broke, so I decided to sell fan art at Anime Expo. So when I was at Anime Expo, I met some really interesting people, but there was a guy that came up to me. He's like, "Hey, are you looking for work?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I thought he was lying to me. He's like, "Can I have your email?" And I like wrote it down on one of my Naruto prints that he got, and he purchased it from me. So after that, he contacted me, and I got a job at a small game studio. It wasn't extravagant like Alvin's nice spiral staircase thing. It was like we were like 4 people stuck in a really small room, and when you poo, you could hear each other. So that made me really self-conscious. Yeah, but it was like kind of an internship, but it was full time. After that, I was like, oh, I don't need to finish school because it's so expensive. And our friend Darren recommended me to Titmouse, and then I got my first job in animation.
Seems like at least 3 of you got the job through the referral in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you?
Referral, yeah.
That's how like most of your friends get their first jobs, maybe too, in the industry.
It can be. It definitely helps. Maybe for us back then, where like Instagram wasn't a thing, or recruiters weren't so much looking at people's social media as much. And also there's like way more shows and projects going on right now. But for us, at least for me, I think referrals definitely help, because I didn't get my first job till like 2 years after school. So, and all the other places I applied to, nobody ever got back to me. In fact, I don't know if I ever gotten a job from like directly applying anywhere. Not to be discouraging, but it's, again, this like, it's an experience everyone has, being rejected all the time and stuff. That's just part of it and stuff. And then just suddenly the right opportunity or the right job comes up, and you happen to be available, or you happen to know somebody who knows somebody, and then things line up, and then that happens. And that's not something that you can control, really. It just sort of happens.
That's because you didn't go to any of the Hollywood parties, or you didn't
No.
go to any anime expo to sell your friends.
Yeah, I wasn't doing Naruto fan art. I wasn't going to Hollywood parties.
So you were just doing freelance for the 2 years then?
Yeah. Just like, random freelance jobs. Someone needs you to design, I don't know. It's just stuff that I wouldn't put in my portfolio necessarily, or wasn't like super proud of, but just like, hey, they're paying me to do art, sure.
Yeah, but it was tough for 2 years, I bet.
Yeah, especially if like all your friends are getting jobs and they're all getting hired and stuff, you kind of feel like you're falling behind. And I think I was like considering moving elsewhere, or maybe need to try a different career and stuff. I think everyone kind of goes through that identity crisis. Like, am I doing the right thing? Do I need to change my career?
Did you ever think about moving back to Texas, where you're from?
Not necessarily back to Texas, but I had like family friends up in actually near San Jose. So, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll work in like, because mobile games was like really big back then. I think still are, but a lot of people were doing like mobile game art. So I was like, oh, maybe I can do something about that and just be up in the Bay Area. So I actually was considering like moving in with the family back up there. So yeah, I don't know about Texas because where I'm from, Houston, not so much like an animation industry. But yeah, if things were
Isn't Powerhouse up there?
Oh yeah, that's in Austin.
Oh, Austin,
which
okay.
wasn't where I live, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you stayed, and now you are with us.
Yeah, I'm glad too, and it just so happened. I think like right around the time I was like thinking of moving, that I got that job on Twitter. So just things happen to you. You never know. You never know what's going to happen.
Right. And the next section, we want to just talk about, like, it's going to be a conversation. You guys can just jumping through each other's talking too, because we want to talk about the things you learned. Because I think there are going to be a lot of similarities. Like you learned from your first job, like things you wish you have done or things you wish you hadn't done. And Larry, you mentioned that you learned a lot from your first job experience. Maybe you can start.
Well, one of the first important things you kind of want to learn is you got to treat your job differently than you treat being in a classroom with other people. You're now a professional, right? So the two things you don't talk about ever at work is religion and politics. You learn to conduct yourself in a professional manner. So like sometimes you're used to just like talking really casually, but at the workplace, you have to, you're an adult now essentially, right? So you have to, in order to build good relationships, you want to conduct yourself differently than you would with your friends. A lot of times your worldview might not be the same as your boss's. It could be very, very different. So like, as much as, let's say, you have feel things about a certain way, you just keep that to yourself, and you just learn to be a little bit more mature at the workplace, which I was not very good at several times. Did I learn? I don't think I learned that much.
Clearly.
I learned, the thing is, like, I make plenty of mistakes, and every time you move on to the next job, you make fewer of those mistakes. So eventually you just go there and then, you know, it's okay. You just keep on making mistakes and you kind of learn from that. And over time, you learn how to treat yourself better, and also how to be a better employee. I think sometimes the best way to conduct yourself at the workplace is you're inclined, you want to treat people as your friends, but at the same time, you want to, how do you say it? People are very sensitive to how people's relationships are built there, and you just don't want to ruffle any feathers, because you never know when somebody you might work with might be your boss one day or vice versa. So at the workplace, even in school, like you just want to maintain good relationships, even with sometimes there might be somebody that you find absolutely obnoxious or annoying, or like for whatever reason, you just kind of keep it to yourself and like just, I wouldn't say eat it, but then unless you're doing something really bad that you can report to the HR. But if
HR doesn't do anything, but
yeah, HR doesn't do
That's
anything.
another conversation.
But just maintain good relationships. And even I've been referred by people I don't even like. I find them really annoying at the workplace, and they referred me. I'm like, oh, cool. Thank God I didn't say anything about you openly. So
yeah.
Sounds like Larry wanted to talk a lot of shit.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
He's
sounds like
holding back.
you talked a lot about politics and religion, and then that's how you learned your lesson.
Oh, yeah. Especially during an election year, just keep it all to yourself.
Speak for yourself, Larry.
I'm not an art director, okay? I can't say whatever I want. Jesus Christ. Don't talk about religion either.
And Alvin, what did you learn from that Hollywood dream?
It's a lot of schmoozing. I really don't like schmoozing, but it's one of the hard realities. You have to be outgoing. Being outgoing helps you. So you can't just keep to yourself all the time. You have to go out and introduce yourself. You have to do what feels fake. Like, hey, hey, I'm da-da-da-da-da. Let's link up sometime for lunch. Like, see, it's even right now, it's very awkward for me because That's not how I like to get to know people. I'd rather just meet people in a more organic way, like at a party or something, and then we just happen to talk about like K-pop or anime or start dancing or something. So that's how I like to make friends. But it is a reality. You do have to put yourself out there. I learned that because the boss of my studio, he would constantly bring celebrities into the studio to walk them around and give them a tour of the place. I mean, that dude likes to schmooze. So I learned, oh, you know what? You got to schmooze. As much as I don't like it, you got to schmooze.
But how come meeting all these celebrities and all these experiences made you not into Hollywood dream or this afterwards?
I think the way he was talking, the way they were bantering back and forth, like how Hollywood elitists talk, it just seemed so vapid and so contrived. Like there was not much substance to what they were talking about. I don't know. I like to talk about philosophy, so maybe it's just me. I'm weird, so.
Alvin's deep. The deep man.
Yeah.
I agree. There's a illusion of what before anybody gets in the industry, they think about celebrity culture and celebrity worship. And once you kind of get into it, like sometimes you can say, don't meet your heroes or your idols. It's very, very true. You kind of learn about like the dark side, especially if you're working a project based on like a celebrity. Like you learn their inner secrets and how they work. They have a showcase, like a face they project to the audiences, and then there's like the business side. And sometimes like there's like an illusion that everything's all rosy, but not to be negative or anything, but then like everything after a certain point where you're in the business, you don't see celebrities in the same way. They're like your business partners, you're working for them, and they're like almost, even though they're probably way above you in terms of pay scale, they're kind of like your coworker. You're working, you're collaborating with them, and like the less you kind of worship them in a way, the more you're able to be efficiently like produce for them and not like let it get in the way.
Did you all have like a dream job or like a dream studio you wanted to work for? And did you work there afterwards?
No.
No. I wanted to
Larry,
work for Pixar.
Yeah, Larry talked about it.
Yeah. No.
Angela, you don't have a dream studio you
I
want
wanted
to
to work on Square Enix on Final Fantasy 50, but I mean, that's not going to happen.
But you just put it out there. So
yeah.
Maybe I'll
hire me, Square Enix. No.
But then what did you learn from your first game industry job then?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Don't doubt yourself and don't get shit paid. Yeah. Because I feel like as artists, and I think especially as a girl, you're always like, oh my God, am I like good enough? Do I even deserve this? I should get under minimum wage. And then you're just like, okay, I'll take this. Give me anything you want. But then it's like, I think that's the thing that I learned the most. It still gets really hard, but I think everybody has to work on their negotiation. That's why you should tune into Kim's lecture tomorrow about negotiation.
Nice plug.
Yeah.
Did you move on to animation because you got paid more?
No, I moved on because I was like, I'm not going to commute to Santa Ana from Arcadia anymore, and I can't drive 2 hours. Yeah, but when I saw my paycheck in animation, I was like, oh, what is this? Okay, wow. Okay, I could survive now. I know what Feng Su's talking about. So it was nice. And then it's really important for you guys before you get into the industry to talk to more people with experience so you know how much money you're supposed to get. I think people like studios take advantage of people just getting out of school. So you guys should equip yourself with this knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. Not just for people out of school though, for everyone. If you want to land or negotiate a new job, you should just really do some research and find a good number.
Yeah, but it's like different because if you're in a guild job, you'll have to have a minimum that's met. But if it's like not a guild job, it's kind of like the Wild West. So you have to understand the differences between the two. Yeah.
Yeah. And Michelle, is your studio also in the guild?
Yeah, actually, when I joined, they had just joined the guild, so I was pretty lucky that. In terms of like things that I wish I knew, I think I just maybe as like general advice for people, don't assume that like your first job it's gonna answer all your problems. or because I think everyone really wants to break in, and they think that like when they land that job, they're going to make it, they're legit now. It certainly does feel good, but it's not like everything. Your career is not just your identity. Um,
Yeah.
so, and I think a lot of people think that, oh yeah, I'm going to get a job and everything is going to go great and now everyone's going to respect me and stuff. And there's like, you will notice some elitism with people who will maybe won't talk to you if you're not like working in the studios already or you're still a student or stuff, which yeah, I don't believe in that. I hate that actually. But what was I saying? Yeah, I think you'll need to like cultivate other parts of yourself, your interests and your personality, and not like put everything all on just like your job, your career and stuff. Because your first job could be like really shitty. And like Alvin's experience, or
It was good
maybe
and bad.
good and bad. Not everyone's going to land their like dream job initially, and it's all going to be a big learning experience. And yeah, that's kind of lost my train of thought, but general advice.
What were some mistakes or things you wish you didn't do besides the social skills you were training, like Larry was talking about? Are there things you think people should be mindful?
I'll go. Don't trust everyone, guys.
Damn, I was going to say something that kind of contradicts that. I was going to say, go out and try to make friends with as many people in the place as you can.
Well, I agree with Alvin.
That's
that's how we built this group, and we have so many people here.
It's because most people are nice, but sometimes you're unlucky and you meet some people that are out to get you. So, like, I think just be smart. Don't be like me.
Thanks,
I would say one thing I wish I did better when I was working was I wish I stayed in shape more. You tend to get stressed out really easily. There's a lot of deadlines, and sometimes places they try to bribe you with food, right? They bring in cake and they bring in donuts, and you're thinking, oh, like you're coming off being like a poor student. You're like, oh shit, there's free food. I'm gonna eat everything, you know. Oh, this is from this bakery. This is an expensive donut. I'm gonna eat it. So you eat like 2 or 3, and then you eat 5 ice creams, and you eat a sandwich, and you eat this and that, and then
I think you're the only one that did that.
But anyway, you're used to that lifestyle of just sustenance, right? And then later on, you're like all like lethargic and stuff, and you're working at your desk, and you get sleepy at work. And so like you gotta stay healthy and stay in shape because it coincides with how productive you are at work and how much you can focus. And so, yeah.
Another tip: if there's an event, go to the event. Go out, even if you're an introvert, even if you're a homebody. Just you got to show up sometimes. You got to show your face because no one's gonna know about you if you're never out.
Do you mean the conventions, art-related events?
Yeah, if there's like a work event, if there's like an after work thing, try and show up. Even if you don't like anybody, show up anyway.
It's gonna be hard for people who are a little bit shy, or
yes, it will be hard. You're at a disadvantage, shy people. But
how do you talk to people? Because like I go to parties sometimes, and then there's like a lot of people, and I'm just like in the corner. I'm like,
just go like. Hopefully, you have basic speaking skills, like how we're speaking right now. That's basically the base level you should be at. Can you have a conversation? Yeah. How you open the conversation is fine as long as you can keep going, and don't worry too much. If you're in your head too much, you won't be able to think of anything.
Yeah, we're gonna have another podcast on social skills.
I think that would be good, actually.
Yeah.
And people are giving some good tips in the chat.
Yeah, people were also asking about conventions. I know Angela was lucky enough to got the first job from the convention. Do you guys try to talk, like when you have a full-time job, if you have a table at the convention, do you talk to students? Like when they come over, ask you for a portfolio review and just critiques?
Yeah, I've tabled before, and yeah, it's exhausting, but yeah, I try to talk to everybody, and also being on the other side. I think when I went to my first CTN, like everybody, you trying to show people your portfolio, but had a lot of anxiety about, and I still do. I have so much anxiety about like talking to somebody, especially if they're like an artist you admire. your art hero or something, and then like showing them your work, because you know that like 50 other people are also showing them portfolios at the same time. You're like, oh no, should I do it? But you kind of do have to put yourself, because like you were saying, if you don't do it, then how are you ever going to get your work out there? So what was the question? Why am I
Does do conventions help?
Yeah, if the conventions help students, and if it helps your career, if you want to switch career even.
So I'm still doing conventions to this day. I think art conventions are a good way to practice your social skills and understand the people out there. And you never know who are roaming these conventions. You have big name directors, celebrities, and people who will commission your products. And this is also a good way for them to kind of get feedback. Because sometimes if, let's say, you're going to another convention to get a portfolio review, sometimes art directors will come by and actually will give you a review at your conventions. And also you get to speak to people like who are a little bit new. And also the great thing about conventions, it's a great test in patience, because you're gonna meet people from all walks of life with all sorts of personalities. And in order to be able to function in the workplace, you have to be a patient person. And you're gonna meet some characters, but at the end of the day, I think doing the conventions will make you become a nicer person if you want to, because like, even if you meet some really, really annoying person, at the end of the day, if you're nice to them, they'll buy your stuff.
Yeah, too bad we can't really have conventions this year. So maybe next year, guys.
Well, I think another good thing about conventions is like when people don't buy your artwork, it's good training for yourself too. Because I know like artists are sensitive. For me, when I saw the person next to me selling so many prints and I sold nothing, I was like, okay, I got over it. At first it really hurt, but I think that's really good training for artists, because you need to just get over that shit. Yeah. And it goes back to what everybody's saying, like you kind of have to talk and get to know more people.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna go through the questions, and we have half an hour. We'll see. I think a lot of these you guys have already answered. And so the first one is Susie. She says, anybody make a career change from ad industry into animation or games? I would like to.
Not ad. I came from engineering, but I'm thinking if you're coming from ads, it would be easier, because ads, you still have to apply a lot of creative ideas, a lot of your creativity. So it would be easier to go from ads to animation.
You just need to get a good referral.
Yeah. And Susie, I know you can paint, so if you just make an animation style portfolio, you should be good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll hook it up, Susie. But I have friends who worked for PsyOp, and I think that's more of an advertising agency. So they moved back to LA from New York, so they're working in animation now.
And next one from Jason. What are the things you know now about how to get work that you wish you knew when you were applying for your first jobs?
Yeah, I would have schmoozed a lot more. Yeah. The whole reason I got that job was my friend who referred me, and he's a schmoozer. He specifically goes down to LA just to go to meet people.
I think I wish I asked more questions about stuff like pay and what to expect, because that's not something people really talk about it, and I still feel awkward asking people. But I think if we got more of like a culture, people were comfortable talking about how much they're getting paid and stuff, then you'll know like what to ask for, or how to know if someone's lowballing you and stuff. So that's something I still need to work on and get over with, just like asking questions that I know I can't answer myself, and even if I feel embarrassed asking, just to find out more information. It'll help everybody overall.
But it's kind of hard for like a student, let's say, if you just graduated, you don't know anyone, you're not good friends with anyone who are already working. How do you get those pay information?
Well, the thing is, I mean, we have our Warrior Painters community Discord with like over 800 members, I think. Because now there's so many ways you can just reach out to people online on Instagram or Discord. And I think that's great about our community is like generally everyone is like pretty open to answering questions and sharing information. So I think now people are really lucky to have such access to all this information. So
and we have a lot of members, but I only see the same faces and names all the time. So most of the members are not active.
Or they're lurking.
If you're lurking, it's again, if you're just lurking, that's again practice to be social. just go and say hi, post some art, and participate in the one of the many channels that we have.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. Trust me, guys.
Thanks for doing all the promoting, guys.
I think also what Alvin says, back then I was really afraid of asking for stuff. So I think, of course, you don't just be like, you're not going to go up to someone like, hey, could you give me a job? You have to like learn how to talk to them. But after you get to a certain level, if you guys feel like you're ready to move on to like art directing, or you want to switch careers, I think it just takes like a question from you guys, like, hey, could you guys help me get into this position? Or you let the HR know. So I think that's something I regret, not asking for more stuff early on.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to ask.
But it is common to feel kind of scared in the beginning, especially if it's your
Yeah.
first job. You don't know how to ask for pay or
Yeah, because
negotiate.
you're afraid of being that person who asks for shit too much. You know what I'm saying? Like that kiss ass person that's always asking for shit.
Yeah.
But you gotta be that person sometimes.
Yeah. So like Jessica said, it's good to ask, but not be entitled. So I think that's true.
But what do you guys think about just standing up for yourself in a workplace?
Yeah, you should do that.
You have to feel out the situation, in my opinion, because some people they'll always think they're right. So you need to pick and choose your battles. Because sometimes if you fight back, it's just going to make your long-term project more painful. So you need to be able to see, like, is it worth it if I do this?
Yeah, you got to work with that person every day.
Yeah, and I'm not in animation or art at all, but I remember in my early years, I had issues saying no to people, especially people who are a little bit higher up than me. So they would just dump me work. Yeah. I think that was my issue back then. I was like, how do I say no to these people? Did you guys have the same experience?
Yeah, learning how to say no is also as hard as, you don't want to be a yes person. Yeah, otherwise people will just walk all over you.
Yeah.
I had one more tip for people in the chat who are students right now. If you're a student right now and you got some extra time outside of doing your homework and stuff, go get a part-time job as a server or a barista or something in customer service. Because I saw a comment there, someone mentioned customer service. It's a very key skill. You will learn how to deal with people. You will learn how to diffuse situations. You will learn how to convince people to buy things from you. It's very good all around.
That's a good tip. Yeah, I think that's.
Did you guys work in a service industry before?
Wiener Schnitzel.
I was a barista for 5 years.
That's great. Yeah, that's a good tip. So let me move on to the questions. Were any of you guys that set on one art job, or were you all open to doing anything related to VisDap/illustration and other things in the industry besides the animation industry?
I don't think I was dead set. Maybe because I was afraid of commitment. I didn't want to live it myself. Because it is kind of, and I think that's something I've also learned. Don't assume that you're just going to do one thing for your whole career. Your position and stuff, it will always be changing. There's always like other things you can be doing. So I don't agree with the mindset of just like doing one thing, unless that's like truly your one passion. You can't imagine doing anything else. But for me, that wasn't my path. I wanted to like be more open-minded, and plus new like careers and positions in art are always like opening up. Like for us, we didn't know about a lot of these art positions when we were in school. So if we were dead set on something else, we may not have fallen into the careers and paths that we are at now.
Yeah, I think you guys have the skills and you can apply to a lot of different things, right? And even Larry was saying fine art. I mean, you studied fine art, like maybe you're not into it right now, but you still have the skills you can apply to it later, right?
It taught me how to bullshit really well. So in certain situations, like they teach you how to communicate better and how to worry better. So when you're in a tough situation, like if you want to convince, a lot of fine art is just like you're taking this spray bottle, right? And then you just want to convince why this is art. And if you can pull something out of your
Convince
ass,
us, Larry.
yeah,
Convince us.
okay.
We're gonna bring Caroline to
Pedro.
have a talk with you later. I can sense her anger right now. But all right. Next one is: do you know other people that have been able to get jobs through conventions? And how do recruiters judge? I believe during conventions. Yep.
I mean, I think so. I mean, no, I don't know if people talk about that a lot, but I mean, I just know of me. But I know like there's a lot of like Larry says, as they're going through conventions, you never know who's there. It could be the owner of Legendary or something. So yeah.
Yeah, and don't ignore people because that aren't necessarily like the big studios, because I think all the students, they kind of flock to the big name studios, but there's a lot of other people there too. Maybe they're smaller studios, or maybe they don't have like official representation, but they're like still scoping around. I know my studio was doing that, and they didn't like have an official booth necessarily, but they were still like talking to artists. So you want to make sure you're on your best behavior and have your portfolio ready to show to whoever too.
Mm-hmm. And also at small studios, you learn more because there's a better chance that you're not going to be stuck just doing one thing.
Yeah.
They'll probably have you put on more than one hat at a time. So it's a good chance to learn a lot in a short period of time.
Yeah. I saw there's another question just about the difference working at a small studio versus a big one. And what's the benefit of working at a big studio then, besides the big names and a good resume?
Networking.
Probably. Yeah, networking. Yeah, that's it. Networking is a big one.
Sometimes they have a better air conditioner systems.
Yeah, that's
or free lunch, right?
Yeah, free lunch, healthcare, all that security stuff that people like. If you want to be secure, work at a big place. Also, the jobs tend to last longer. And it looks good on your resume. And it will also help you, if you haven't already, it'll also help you wake up. It'll dispel any kind of romantic fantasies you have about working in animation.
Yeah, true. That's true.
So right now, because we're in this pandemic, do you guys see the big studios keep the people more, or the small studios tend to keep the employees more?
I think I've seen both. I know of shows that have been canceled because like they just can't afford them. But then I also still see studios hiring. So I think it just depends on the studio, but I see both.
Is it easier to get rolled around in a bigger studio?
I think it depends. It depends on how many projects they got going on.
And how much they like you.
How much they like you, yeah.
So there's not really big difference between small studio and big studio.
Well, a big studio would have a lot more projects than a small studio.
Yeah.
So maybe more opportunities to roll onto a smaller show or other show. But my studio, it's a small studio, but I've been on there for maybe like 5 or 6 years, and I've always been rolled onto other shows. So it really depends, maybe if they like you, if you made a good impression on people, if they like your work. Yeah.
And this one's a big one. Where do you guys see yourselves in 10 years, career-wise?
Fuck.
Not depending on a studio and playing everything. So that's all.
Yeah, I would like to have more than one stream of income. I wouldn't mind still working for a studio, but I would also like to be well known enough where I can get a stream of income just from my own personal art, like James Jean. I want to be James Jean, basically.
It's similar. I would like to have flexibility and not be dependent on a studio. But also like Alvin, I wouldn't mind working at a studio, but I don't want them to be my main source of income. And especially now with work from home, we've shown that like we can work anywhere really with our setup in animation. So it'd be nice not to have to go into a studio all the time. So
and I think the reason keep going.
No, I'm done.
All right. And I think the reason why we say that, I think all of us have woken up and we don't. We've woken up. We've seen all the realities of the everyday, working in the biz, and the things you learn is that uh, just because you work somewhere doesn't mean that company is loyal to you. You're still just a tool for them for their bottom line. It's not stable.
The next one is, does moving to LA / California make a difference in finding more jobs? I understand it's really expensive to live there, but is it worth it?
I think it is, because you're with people who do the stuff and you can go to CDA and like brainstorm. But now everything's online, so maybe it won't make a difference.
Yeah, I think it depends on your situation. If you're international, that's like a much bigger commitment. And also, if you're internationally, I think you need to have a degree, right, to stay in the U.S. to work. So that's like something you also need to consider. Moving to LA definitely, I think for us, since we're all LA based, it's definitely helped our careers. But I know people who don't live in LA and they have careers fine in art as well. It's a little different. If you have if you're able to, I think it'll be great. And plus there's such a great like art scene, animation scene here. If you want to be part of that, if you want to be part of or if you just want to live in Los Angeles, that could be a good move for you. But some people hate LA. That's not for everybody. So consider that too if you feel like the city is the right fit for you to live in, because it's not for career. Yeah, it can be great, but also if you just can't vibe with the city, it's just not for you. You may be miserable. Yeah, if you don't like driving, that's gonna be rough.
Yeah. Also, I would say move to LA if you're very confident about your work. If you think your work is great. If you know you're able to go out and socialize and talk to people, because it's sometimes you won't have help. Sometimes you have to go out there and do shit from scratch. You have to build all those networks from scratch. So if you're confident about doing all that stuff, yeah, okay, go ahead, try it. Move to LA, like I did. I happened to survive for 7 years, so I'm still here.
That's a long time. So you guys being in LA, and you kind of know, all of you except for Larry, you know the animation industry, right? So how, can you talk about the current job market in animation, maybe specifically about LA, and how has it changed over the years? So I guess this is asking, is it getting easier? Is it getting harder?
Getting harder
to find a job.
Because I think the problem is a lot of people who just get their jobs, they feel obligated to stay at work and put in free overtime and turn in like a lot of extra work. So it's giving a lot of like producers the wrong mentality that like, oh, so this artist finished like 10 drawings in a week. And because of this, every other schedule is going to be based off of this. So it's just like a really broken system. So I feel like it's getting harder and harder with all the projects I've been on. Yeah.
But it's been doing okay during the pandemic because animation isn't affected that much, right?
Oh, you're talking about that.
I'm talking about right now, but
I think it's grown a lot more, especially with streaming. There's so much shows and content that need to be made, and we've seen how like animation is like a little bit more resilient versus live action shows and stuff. So I think there's a lot of demand for animation, but also it's very competitive because now so many people
there's more people in the pool. There's more competition.
More people want to get in, and if you're younger, you're cheaper. So I think as you get older, I don't see as many older professionals in certain jobs. Like all the designers at my studio are very, very young. So I don't know how long or sustainable the career can be like later on as well. And also, and we mostly been talking about animation too, but also there's like obviously games and advertising and theme parks as Larry works in. And I think there's a lot of overlap too, like the skills you do in one industry that will definitely like carry over into the other industries. And I've seen some people move around, or some people are trying to like get into the other industry as well. But there's a lot of, I think, opportunities to work in art that may not necessarily just be animation related.
And Larry got one question you can answer.
Okay.
What is your unique skill that you hope will stand out to your employer?
Unique skill. There are skills that you can learn outside of animation and art school if from even regular colleges that you can apply. Like I used to do a lot of community service and bringing practical skills that you learn from other avenues and introducing them to things that, I mean, because when you're in art school and when you go to art school, it's just such focus to one thing. So everybody kind of like is so focused on building certain things. You're missing out on other life activities. So I encourage people to even this college is really expensive right now, but if you get a chance to meet people and outside of industry, that's a great way to broaden your horizons. And so like I usually bring a perspective outside of our school, having gone to 2 different colleges. I think Alvin can attest to this, that you have a very different way of thinking about how to approach things. So it just offers an alternative view.
And what about Michelle and Angela? What are your special skills? I know Alvin can dance really well.
It only helps at parties.
From what I've been told and when I've talked to like my supervisors and stuff, they appreciate my like range and adaptability and stuff, that I'm like able to like put on. I think we were talking about putting on different hats because I work at a smaller studio. So I do like work as a character designer, but I also like do other stuff as well. I paint. So being able to have like a range and diversity in the stuff that you do, I think is very helpful. I don't know. It's so hard to talk about what makes me unique.
It's okay. We all think like that sometimes.
Yeah.
But other people can always find our unique skills.
Yeah.
And Angela, you wanted to say something earlier?
No, I didn't want to say anything.
Oh, what's your special skills? I want to know that too.
I don't know. Let's skip this and ask. There's so many other questions.
I think Angela is a really good leader. And you're very ambitious and driven. Like when you say you want to do something, it happens. Like I don't know how it happens.
Kaylee's doing all the work in the back.
Yeah, but you're a great team. Yeah.
Yeah, that leads to our next question. How did you guys all meet? I guess including me.
Well,
I
Larry
met
and
Michelle at not clubbing, sorry. I met Michelle at Warrior Painters.
Yeah, and I think that's how I've met everyone else through Warrior Painters. Right?
Larry was from school. Alvin
Yeah.
was from Warrior Painters.
Yeah.
And I joined Warrior Painters through Steve, because me and Steve worked together, and then Steve was in Warrior Painters first, and then I joined it because I kept seeing his posts, and it was this Warrior Painters thing. Then I lurked on the Facebook page for like a year before ever coming out, and then I came out for the first time, and I'm like, whoa, hey everybody.
And you never stopped coming.
Yeah, I've come
You can't get rid of him.
semi-regularly. Yeah.
Yeah, Warrior Painters.
And another question is about how do you guys think about art school? I think we talked about making another podcast about this, but if you guys want to just touch on that, it'd be good too.
Oof, that's a big one.
Too long, didn't read. Not worth it.
Yeah, same. I agree with that.
Depends on your situation. Like I was saying earlier, if you're international, and if you want to come to the US, then you need to consider getting a degree maybe. But now there's so many schools and ways to learn. Art school is not the only path, I would say.
If you are not self-disciplined, then you might need some form of instruction. And like some of us have tiger parents, and they want you to have good grades, and the grades are a measure of how much effort you pulled into stuff. So maybe for some people like that, school might be good. But if I really recommend to train you guys to be self-disciplined. That's like the best possible outcome. So you won't be in debt. So learn how to be self-disciplined, and then that's the best outcome for you.
Don't play so much Animal Crossing.
Rydell, if you're here. No, I agree. I think one thing I learned from Art Center is time management. So I can't say I hated Art Center completely.
But is a diploma needed in your industry?
No.
That's
unless you guys want to move over from another country, I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have one here. We might only have time for like 2 more. So this one is about how do you deal with comparing yourself to others, especially to younger artists?
My favorite topic.
Good question. That's a good question.
How do we deal? I don't know if I can deal.
How do you feel when you're comparing yourself to younger, more talented
shit?
artists?
Yeah, like shit, but what could you do about it? You can't go back to the future.
Yeah.
Okay, I used to think when I see people's work, I used to say to myself, "Oh, so good. I suck so bad." But now I learned to never say anything negative about myself, except if I'm just kidding. And now when I see other people's good work, I'm like, "Oh, that's so good. Okay, let's try this. Let's do this." It makes me want to try it too.
I like that.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like even though people are really good at that moment, some people are late bloomers. So you always have like, I wasn't always the best at art school, but I think if you'd work hard and have that discipline that Larry was talking about, then you could get farther later on. And you just have to be patient with yourself. Yeah. And you can't be good at everything. So don't try to do that.
Yeah, looking through all the Instagram feeds of really amazing artists. But you also, like, for us, we have some experience now, and we've had like other life experience that make us who we are. So like, I think when you're a student starting out, maybe art is really most of your life experience, especially if you went through art school. But after doing other things with your life, having other hobbies and interests, it doesn't become as big of a deal to me to see like amazing artists like, oh, that's awesome. Great for them. I'm not there. I will never be that great, but I have other skills, other interests and stuff that make up who I am too.
Mm-hmm. That's a good perspective.
Yeah. Because you're not just an artist, you are a person, you have other hobbies, and
exactly.
Don't be so attached in how other people think of you.
Yeah,
that's hard.
Get off social media sometimes.
Good suggestion. but stay on Warrior Painters so you can see our new events.
Yes. Don't forget Warrior Painters.
Okay, this one's easy, but it's for Alvin specifically. What's schmooze?
Schmooze? It's a kind of cream that you put on a bagel.
Are you talking about a schmear?
Oh, that's schmear. Schmooze is like small talk, like kind of like, hey, we should get lunch. That's basically schmoozing. When you go to like a fancy fine art gallery, an art opening, and everyone's drinking wine and cheese and shit, and talking about the art. Oh, this is so lovely. I love how it reflects the soul of the artist. Don't you think so? That's schmoozing. It's kind of like a very surface level talk, mostly kind of like networking talk.
Yeah.
Okay, because that was an easy one. So I'm going to ask one more question, okay? How do you show your thanks to someone if they put in good word for you? I usually feel compelled to feed people or give someone a small gift, but maybe that's too much. Do you just pay it forward? What do you do?
I would just do a good job. If you're talking about like referring you to a job or something, just do a really, really good job so you prove to them that they made the right decision to refer you. The worst thing you can do is someone refer to you and then you do a really bad job. Yeah,
that's the risk.
Yeah.
Because then the person that you're associated with, their reputation looks bad too. If the company ends up not liking you.
I think on a more emotional aspect, if you feel like if you're that type of person who likes to give thanks, I think it's just nice to mention like once in a while, like, oh, so and so helped me, and I will be forever thankful. Just like to mention
Give
it
a
once
shout
in a while.
out.
Yeah, just a shout out. I think sometimes it really touches people's hearts.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I think this happens a lot now. Like maybe they refer you, but you might refer them later for something else.
Yeah.
Like keeping all these people in mind for other opportunities and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to do.
And a good habit to start is always give thanks. Always practice gratitude. When you're talking about something, and then say your supervisor says, "Hey, good job on this," you think you can have some credit, but always give some credit to everyone else that has helped you.
Yeah, that's really important, and I think that's what might make you more unique and stand out for your personality, and that's a really good tip.
Yeah, that was a good question to end session. Thank you all for talking to us today.
Thanks, guys.
And thanks everyone for joining and asking questions in the chat.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye,
See you on
guys.
the next one.
Roll the
Thanks, guys.
outro music.
Hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you have any suggestions, please leave your comments on whichever platform you're listening with. And if you like this podcast and other events we organize, please consider donating to us on Gumroad. You'll find a link in the description. Thank you and hope to see you again soon.